So, hello everyone, I am here with patient and pioneer Tal Golesworthy, the inventor of PEARS, the personalised external aortic root support. He is the first recipient of his fantastic invention, which has since saved many lives, including his own 22 years ago. Tal remains, as an engineer and a very bright person, interested in the world of connective tissue disorders, scans, imaging, measurements, and also he's interested in the genetics underlying all of this. And he's here today to discuss his sort of ruminations and just general thoughts on the world of measurements and genetics. Hello, Tal.
Hi, Victoria. Many thanks for that. Um, as I said earlier, 22 years ago, this week, in fact, I was in the Brompton. So it's a strange time of year for me, but a very gratifying one because here I am completely fine. I have 22 annual post-op MRI studies, all of which give me exactly the same dimensions for all of the bits of my ascending aorta. And as of today, I think we've treated 1,834 patients in total in about 50 surgical centres in about 15 countries. So we really are growing and it's great. I spend a lot of time looking at what's going on the various social media sites relating to CTDs and Marfan and the like. And there are some themes that come up which really do kind of rankle with me a little bit. The first one is measurement. Of course, it's a key issue. What diameter is my aorta? What do they mean when they say aortic root diameter? That's a very interesting question in its own right. But um, I constantly see one particular unfortunate error being made. When you make a measurement, you might be doing it with transthoracic echo, TTE echo. You might be making it with MRI. You might be making it with CT. These are all different measurement modalities with different pros and cons. And I think people are perhaps not familiar with that. Transthoracic echo is very, very quick and very cheap. That's why they like doing it. Um, but the results are only really good for about plus or minus 5 millimeters. So if you see a 1 millimeter change between this year's TTE and last year's TTE, it probably isn't a real change. So you want to understand the idea of error bar. It's plus minus 5 mil about on transthoracic echo. When you go to MR, it's much, much better. Depending on the age of the machine, a typical modern machine will give you an MR study, an MR value that's probably good for plus or minus 3 millimeters. Um, if you go to CT, it's even better. You're probably looking at plus or minus 2 millimeters with a CT measurement. And also bear in mind, and this is really important, if you are in an MR or a CT scanner, if you ask what the resolution of the scanner is, what is the smallest volume pixel or voxel, and they say, oh, it's 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter, that size is where you are sitting with looking at structures orthogonal to your body. Now, the aorta is not orthogonal to your body. The aorta is at any angle, and I've seen hundreds, and there are all sorts of different angles. As you angle a structure within the XYZ of the scanner, you actually reduce the resolution of the scanner. So, if, for example, your aorta sat 45 degrees leaning forwards, looking across a 1 mil by 1 mil voxel, the resolution would no longer be 1 millimeter, it'd be 1.414 millimeters. So all of a sudden, it's even coarser than you thought. So there are a lot of issues with measurement. Be very, very careful how you interpret them. Something else not ever to do is to compare one measurement from one modality with another measurement from another modality. Very dangerous. You can be seriously misled. You might be upset by it. You might be worried by it. Best not to be because you've got to be so careful how you interpret the numbers. We just had a case of one of our American patients who was told his aorta dilated post pairs, and it hasn't because we've had a recent CT scan and we've done a very, very careful analysis of it this week, where three of us independently did a check on this guy's diameter, and then we compared our numbers after we'd done the independent measurements. And this guy's aorta hasn't changed at all. So be very, very, very careful. The other issue I see raised so often on social media is genetics. Now, I think in the States you have to get a genetic test they call it a full panel, whatever full means. I mean, full is a nonsense phrase because if there are probably more connective tissue disorders that we haven't yet characterized than those that we have. So, what does a full panel mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means, well, it'll probably pick up Loeys-Dietz, it'll probably pick up Marfan, it might pick up bicuspid aortic valve disease, it might pick up Turner syndrome, it might pick up ACTA 2, but there are loads and loads of others it won't pick up. So, don't take this genetic stuff too seriously. It's we're very much at the beginning of our understanding of genetics. So, getting carried away with it is not a good idea. If you need that box ticked on your form to get to see a surgeon, of course it's important to you. I understand that. The other thing is be very, very careful how you interpret the genetic stuff. When a sperm hits an egg and fuses, you are formed. You are beginning then, and there is a genetic input from your mother, and there's a genetic input from your father. You then develop into an embryo, and you're born. The way that the genetic information expresses itself in the finished person, i.e., the phenotype, is not obvious, and it is not all totally a function of what is in the genotype, the genetics. So I see a lot of people thinking, oh, well, I've got this gene and that gene. That must mean, no, 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 no. You don't know what it means yet until you've got a youngster, until you've got a phenotype to look at. I note, for example, in my case, and I've got some thoughts on that. My father was 6'8". I'm only 6'4". My father had very, very poor visual acuity. I had much better visual acuity. So notionally, we have the same gene mutation, whatever that is. But the phenotypes are very different. The best example of this was a couple we did pairs for, a couple of identical twins, Isaac and Hayden, they're buddies of mine. And so, one egg, one sperm forms a cell. The cell starts to divide, mitosis, and then it splits into two. And so you have two embryos growing that are genetically identical. So these kids are born, they grow up, they're sort of teenagers when I met them. You can't tell these two kids apart. I mean, when I meet them, I just say, "Oh, hello, Isaac," and hope I've got it right. And I've got it right half the time. When I looked at the CAD models of these two guys' aortas, they were totally different, and I was shocked because subconsciously I had decided, oh, they'll be identical, like the rest of them. They weren't. So the idea that that even identical genes can give you identical phenotypes is wrong. There can be huge variations, and we don't really understand what those processes are. There are processes like epigenetics, which are starting to look at this. So don't get too carried away with the genetic stuff because that ain't necessarily how it's going to turn out in the phenotype in your person. That's really all I wanted to say, particularly to all of those people who are worried about size measurements that probably aren't all that accurate, and maybe are getting a little bit upset about a genetic um, test that maybe not be giving them all the information they think it is. Don't take any of this stuff too seriously. Don't worry about it. Do your best to relax and do your best to do really good research, and always, always, always get a second opinion. I think that'll do for me, actually, Victoria.
Thank you very much, Tal. You've brought clarity to two important issues, and in doing so, you've probably diffused fears because
I,
measurements
I hope
and
so. Yeah.
genetics, I know, unsettles people, and they're seeking a definitive diagnosis and a variant of unknown significance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm always reminded when I was doing the feasibility for PEARS, 2000 to about 2004. I always remember coming across one patient who had dissected at 3.8 centimeters,
gosh.
another patient who had not dissected at 7.5 centimeters. So, what this tells me is we really don't understand what happens in the aortic wall. So, to glibly say, oh, you've got Loeys-Dietz or you've got Marfan, it really isn't very helpful because we're all different, both genetically and phenotypically, we're all different. So, don't get too worried about numbers. If you're up around the 5 mark, and you've got an aggressive disease like Loeys-Dietz, you want to get on with it. But if you've got, for example, bicuspid aortic valve, you might have a little bit more time to play with. Um, don't get too carried away with single number indications for surgical intervention because they're very, very poor approximations and really not helpful. If you've got a family history of dissection, get on and sort yourself out. If you've got a family history of no dissection, then you've probably got more time. But even relying on the phenotypes is a little bit dangerous because the phenotypes can change within an existing family. So the most important thing is don't get upset about it. Don't worry about it. Do the best research you can, get the best information you can, and go to at least two clinicians because they're not all as well educated and up to speed as we would like them to be.
They're not all infallible, and you're right about families. There's often disparities within the family.
Yep, yep, yep.
Thank you very much indeed, Tal.
My pleasure. My pleasure.